Hello, and welcome into Classic Wax, your favorite new morning show, brought to you by the Beat Sessions. I am your host, Mitchell Weary. It is Monday, September 2nd. Hope you've all had a fantastic weekend. And if you're here stateside, it is Labor Day. I know not everybody gets the day off, unfortunately. I've been in a line of work where I've worked many Labor Days. So if that happens to be you and you've got to go to work today, I hope it's lucrative. I hope it's worth your time. And I hope you just have an excellent start to your week. For those of you who keep to get the party rolling still, I hope you've had a fun time this weekend. It's been a lot going on. I've had a wild weekend. I had a really good buddy of mine, childhood friend, that was in town for a wedding. Got to hang out with him Friday. We had the start of college football. That's pretty exciting. We're going to talk about that because this is a culture show. Music, big part of the sports scene. You know, you go to a live game, you always hear music in an arena, and it goes back and forth. Honestly, we're going to talk about a specific artist here, getting things started in just a moment. What else? I got a new job this weekend. Very excited to be working with a new team of individuals starting this week. So, yeah, I had a lot going on. That's what's kept me from pumping out more album reviews for you guys. But I will be on top of that here today, tomorrow. We'll talk about a few things here in a little bit, though. Get you going if you haven't checked out these projects. And then we have a really fun record that we're going to dive into. It's definitely a vast contrast from what we did last week. But that's the whole idea with this, is to keep it just kind of random and hopefully throw out some stuff there that, you know, maybe you've never heard it, or maybe it's just been a minute since you've put on the record that we choose to talk about, and it just gets you going for the week. As far as that, the album of the week will be coming at you here shortly. Just want to remind you guys to like, subscribe, share videos, do all the things to help me blow this project up. Don't be shy about super chatting as well. It'd be great to hear from you guys in the chat to talk about any of the stuff that comes up in the show. So hopefully hear from some of you, and we can get into that at the end. And I just want to get on here and double check the chat. All right, here we go. So we were talking about the start of football season, and there is a particular team, the Florida Gators. They play in Gainesville. And so when you go to the Swamp, when you go to a game there, they're all big Tom Petty fans. And I talked about how that works in reverse. It's, Tom Petty, one of my favorite live acts. I'm so thankful that I had a chance to see him while he was still here on this earth. And Mike Campbell, amazing to watch. But when I saw Tom play, Mike was playing this Florida Gator guitar that was just so cool. They're huge fans, and it's definitely reciprocated down there. I believe the tradition is between the third and the fourth quarter. They just blast Tom Petty, and apparently you can just hear it for freaking ever out of that stadium. Pretty cool tradition, though, and it got me chuckling because if you're a fan of Vince Vaughn like I am, and you've been checking out this new show, Bad Monkey, oh my goodness. I love that there's been some critics that are referring to this as petty noir, and they're not wrong. This is a guy who it felt like Vince Vaughn disappeared for a little bit. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I think oftentimes, and especially in his case, because he was the it guy, I feel like, for a better part of the 2000s. But, overexposure like anything else, and people get worn out with you. So it was cool to see him step away because, with the show coming back, I'm like, oh, cool. Got Vince Vaughn here doing this, and it's super well done. Bill Lawrence, show creator, and Tony Von Pervu, I believe. Pervu is how you say his name. He is the music supervisor on this project. And what I love about this show, if you haven't checked it out, and this is, I've thought of this concept. I'm sure so many people, so many of you have thought of this concept, but it's a brilliant one. And it doesn't matter, how many different times you do this, how many different shows you create. The idea of someone's music catalog pushing a show. Seriously, being able to visualize certain scenes just based on songs that an artist has written, I think is one of the coolest concepts out there. And that's what's a big part of what's driving this show. The soundtrack is going to be available October 4th, and it's 21 covers, an amazing list of artists that we'll go over here. Actually, let me pull this up here real quick. But this show, Tony was talking about how it was just, versus so many other projects, it was just so easy to reach out to artists, and they were all immediately like, yeah, and especially given the concept. Because, he was a little picky about, hey, this is what's going on in the scene, the time of day, the specific details, and this is the feel that we're going for on a song. And so to bring people aboard like the War on Drugs, you have Eddie Vedder, Sharon Van Etten is fantastic, Fits in the Tantrums, Larkin Poe, Jason Isbell's on this thing, Kurt Vile, the list goes on and on. This is a very well put together project. The show, the music that accompanies it is just super well done, and I think that obviously it's important with the legacy of a guy like Tom Petty to make sure that you're serving, creating something with some integrity. And, to each their own. Not everybody's going to be a fan of the show, but if, like I said, Petty noir, I really love the angle. Vince Vaughn's character is spectacular in this show, and I'm excited to see this thing open up and to continue production. New episodes are going to be fantastic on this thing. It's really exciting to look forward to that. The next thing I want to get into, we have this is like probably the biggest news story of the week for me anyway, but we have new music from The Cure. This is very cool to hear. They have 2 new songs. And these actually, these are songs that, if you're a fan, they've been playing these live for quite some time now, I believe. But they're finally getting them on record, which is really cool. It's their first music since 2008 that's on record. And my favorite thing about this project, the 2 songs, And Nothing Is Forever and I Can Never Say Goodbye. Excuse me here real quick. It's always fun here with production and trying to pull these up. Here we go. My computer's being a little slow this morning. So these 2 new songs. Hopefully I didn't lose you guys. Oh my goodness. All right, forgive me. Here we go. All right, And Nothing Is Forever and I Can Never Say Goodbye are the 2 new songs. Now, the cool thing about this is they're being released as singles, and there's going to be a limited run of 5,000. Pre-order begins October 1st if you want to get on that. But there's you got a couple options here. There's unsigned units. Those will move at $27 a piece. And then if you'd like to get a signed one, those will be moving for $277. But, to have a limited copy of a Cure record signed, that is just super cool. But the coolest thing about this project is working with Brian Eno's find it. Brian Eno's company, and this is basically the vinyl that they're pressing uses 90% less energy. Here we go. Naked Record Club also uses highly recyclable plastics to create both the singles and their packaging. But it's just great to see. It's a goal of mine with the channel here in the future one day to be able to at least finance some type of vinyl production. And so to have such influential artists like these guys at the helm of projects like this and really pushing that. And I hope that, there's guys like Jack White out there that we've talked about his involvement with vinyl production. And it's so important. The more pressure that gets added to the major record labels to start pressing again. It's still an issue to this day. Production backed up. You get it's so often that you get projects that are released on streaming platforms, but you don't get an actual vinyl. You might get a physical CD or something like that, but I think most people, they're waiting to release all physical forms on the same day, and sometimes that can take the better part of a year. It's pretty wild the state that's gotten into, unfortunately. But kudos to these guys for doing that, and Roger O'Donnell as well. Unfortunately, news out there today that he's been recovering from cancer, and so hope that he had lymphoma. He's reminding everybody, go get checked, catch that early, super important. But just love from the channel here. The Cure is one of the greatest bands that's ever existed. I love The Cure. Fantastic live show. The Curiosa Festival, if you ever had a chance to check that out, I believe that was like 2008. It's been that long, but Interpol, Mogwai, The Rapture played at that show. It was phenomenal. Really quite an event. And looking forward to these two songs being on the physical format. And I should have checked some tour dates. I will do that when I get offline here and post those along with a few other things, some articles that we've been looking at. Need to get some water here. But very excited about The Cure. And on to some new albums that came out this weekend. It's been a fun weekend. I don't know what you guys checked out. Ty Segall, Love Rudiments was something that I enjoyed this weekend. Very excited to get into that this week, talk about that with you guys. And Jonesy from Sigur Rós put out First Light, instrumental record that's very pretty and ambient. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea necessarily, but on a morning like this, sun is shining, it's beautiful. It is a little warm still, but definitely was feeling fall last night. If you were here in Tucson and you stepped outside last night, it was just like the little bit of wind, started to feel cool. Absolutely amazing. My favorite record this week, though, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Really, wrong graphic there. Sorry, guys. Dropping Wild God. This record is something special, and I feel like Nick Cave, even though the output hasn't necessarily been prolific in the last 5 or 6 years, where he is at as an artist is a fascinating place. He, unfortunately, if you're not familiar, has endured incredible loss. The loss of 2 sons, I believe within like the last 15 years or something like that. And I don't have kids. Every parent that I've ever spoken to, though, and sadly, I have spoken to parents who have lost their children. And it's the worst thing that you can pretty much stomach, the worst thing you can experience. And so to have it happen twice, I can't even imagine. Nick's perspective is beautiful, though. And I talked about it in the album review if you hadn't had a chance to check it out. But what I love about his angle on life right now and what he's exploring in his music, it's 2 things, actually. What I really enjoyed, the article that I'll post here on the video for you, talks about using the music as a form of communication, not just with the audience, but seriously trying to put energy out there for his kids, letting them know, the spiritual world that's out there. I mean, to each their own when it comes to your beliefs, but I definitely believe that, yes, there is a beyond. I'm not going to put a finger on it or explain it, but I think that life in the universe and everything is just way too complex for there to be nothing after. And for Nick to say that, to say that his music in a way is some form of communication with this kid, it just really got me. It shook me. I think that's so powerful and incredible. And the fact that he's making music that is joyful. This is a guy that, for so much of his career, that gothic post-punk feel. He's got that macabre flair, right? And he's written music that explores love and obviously has, light textures and melodies. But these newer projects, I feel, they find him in a place with this newfound perspective, coming off of those losses. And it's something we've talked about on the channel, how you're never the same person with this kind of stuff. There's no point as far as recovery and trying to get back there, because you never will. No one ever does. It's learning how to view life from a different angle, appreciating what those people brought to the table while they were still here on Earth. And that's one of the things that's the second big thing that he talks about. He talks about how life, having endured maybe one of the most painful things that a human being can endure, is a beautiful thing. And he's in a place where with experience comes the ability to cope. And being where he's at now, creating this art, he's happy to be alive. He sees the earth as a beautiful place. And he talks about how easy it is to slip into that sort of cynical perspective, and why. It's, to a certain degree, it's serving. And, we're going to get into that, because it would be impossible for me to shut that down and talk about the album of the week. But I do think that, given from time to time, being a little sardonic, being a little sarcastic, just, throwing out a little snarky energy from time to time is not a bad thing. But for the most part, Nick's perspective, I like to feel that I harbor the same perspective on life, as far as no matter what happens, you're going to land on your feet. This has been a pretty wild month for me personally, but that's the energy that I've had through this entire process. It's been like, good things will happen. It's like, you bring good things to the table, people recognize that, keep your head up, stay positive, and it's going to be all right. It will work out. And so what I kind of wanted to build off of, waxing philosophic here, we'll get into that portion of the show, is with this record Wild God. It's been interesting watching, and one of Nick's concerns, one of my concerns, and one of the big concerns a lot of people have is the impact of AI on art, whether it's music or film or painting or literature. I mean, it's pretty wild. Just the endless potential now with this technology in its infancy. It's not even that advanced. And so, I personally believe it's terrifying to think of how powerful that technology could be. But you look at a guy like Nick Cave, and if you want to talk about music in general, there really is that spiritual side of it, knowing that a composition, any piece of art coming from the soul of a human being, I just don't know how people can move on with machines replicating that. And that's the thing, is that down the road, there definitely is going to be the potential to have the highest caliber of art through these forms. And to a certain degree, there is advantages to having these things. But I think that we all felt this during COVID. One of the most important things that we all have is coming together as people and recognizing, especially when it comes to live music, identifying a performer on stage and identifying the emotions that they are trying to convey through their music. What is happening there in that moment? Whether it's the lyrics, or depending on what kind of music you're seeing, whether it's just the instrumentation that's coming at you in that environment. There's nothing else like it, in my opinion. You can ask anybody that's known me my entire life. Live music is just one of those things that is irreplaceable. And watching an artist on stage pour their soul out, there's no way that, I could see myself going to a venue and just, watching a machine play recorded stuff, or knowing that, basically what you'd probably end up with is just a bunch of cover bands, which that's sloppy too. You get a bunch of just very loose, poorly arranged versions of a song, and that's terrifying as well. I don't mean to be too mean, but being involved in live music and working in some of the venues that I have, there's a few bands that could maybe stand a few more hours of rehearsal. It's just crazy how you can hear one of these any song. Think of any song that you've loved over the years, and you listen to four people try to tackle it on stage, or however many people, whatever they're trying to do. And I've seen it get rough. I think we all have seen it get rough, and I feel like that is the future of AI and music, is just going to exacerbate that, amongst many other things. And sometimes when these things come up, it is important to be a little snarky, a little snide, a little snardonic. And that's where we're getting into our album of the week. A punk classic from 1980, the debut record from the Dead Kennedys, entitled Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables, one of my favorite album titles. Great album cover, too. It's actually a photo from the night of the riots after Harvey Milk was assassinated. It's band is from San Francisco. If you're not familiar with the Dead Kennedys, formed in the late 70s by Jello Biafra, East Bay Ray, Klaus Fluoride, and Ted played on this album. They did have a guitar player before they really started recording anything. 60-25. Left the band before they were even able to put out California Uber Alice, though. But this record, this band, oh my goodness, really, establishing this visceral style of punk in America. I feel like, really the roots of this coming out of the UK, Sex Pistols, obviously, everybody is familiar with. But there's something about the Dead Kennedys music, and a guy like Jello especially. I mean, he's a character. Anthony from the Needle Drop, there's a really cool review that interview that he was able to do with Jello. I'll post that link as well. It's definitely worth checking out. It was a fun conversation. But this album, it just made waves. That name, Dead Kennedys. You think about 1980. That's less than 20 years removed from John F. Kennedy's assassination. Robert was assassinated in 68, I believe. So, really tight period of time there. And, of course, everybody was upset about the name and a number of other things that went down over the years. But if you listen to interviews with Jello, and I like this, Jello kind of reminds me of, he's kind of like a modern-day Jonathan Swift maybe a little bit. You get that satire. It's such a big part of the Dead Kennedys music, and it's important because to each their own. It's not everybody's approach when it comes to art, but I do feel like from time to time there are individuals that come along that do such a damn fine job of providing people with a different perspective by being loud and in your face, and that's exactly what the Dead Kennedys do on this record. It's what Jonathan Swift did with A Modest Proposal. If you're not familiar with that essay, I mean, there's a song on this album called I Kill Children. If you're not familiar with Jonathan Swift and A Modest Proposal, that is an essay that was written hundreds of years ago in which he jokingly says that, we can fix the famine in Ireland, and we can fix our problems by eating babies. We're just going to sell all the babies. They're plump. They're delicious. I mean, you should hear the language in this essay. It's absolutely outlandish. This is something, like I said, hundreds of years old. And so, to go back just 40 years and, to think about something like a name like the Dead Kennedys versus what went on with that, I mean, that caused a stir. I mean, people were outraged, but rightfully so. And the thing that I love about Jonathan Swift's essay is that he tackles both sides. He takes a look at the British Empire, and he's just like, you guys are schmucks, and you need to stop, suppressing us, basically, enslaving us. And to the Irish, he's like, hey, like, you need to take more action. You guys need to be more accountable for your lives and for just, what you do as human beings. And that's what I love about the Dead Kennedys. Yes, I mean, very much like a far left band, but if you listen to California Uber Alice, it opens up, I am Governor Jerry Brown. And Jerry Brown, he replaced Ronald Reagan. As far as liberalism in governors, he wasn't a bad option at the time. But I love that Jello and the band very critical of him. And I mean, I can't even imagine when he was reelected. I believe that was like 2011. You think about a band that has been around for that long, but I feel like at that point, it's tough. They haven't. I don't believe they've put out new music. I know that they've reformed in whatever iteration that they're in, but no doubt that, like, I remember that time frame when that song did come up. He came back into office, and it was a thing for a minute. And that type of, it's crazy. It reminds me of Kate Bush with Stranger Things. Running Up That Hill is, I don't think it'd been on the charts for decades, and then bang, it's right there. It's crazy what a pop culture moment can do for any piece of art. And it's funny too, because there's people that argued that, the critics of this record that didn't like it, is that the content would be dated. It's very ephemeral. It's it's not gonna stand the test of time, which I completely disagree at this point. Get that graphic off the screen there real quick. We can bring it back shortly here in a little bit, but just just a monumental point in punk music and just in music in general. If you're not familiar with the Dead Kennedys, I mean, Jello's vocal style, the moment that you listen to him for the first time, there's no way that you cannot hear the influence on a guy like Serge from System of a Down. And frankly, just that whole band. This is definitely a punk outfit, but there's moments where their music is incredibly complex and super fun. And you get these quirky breakdowns. I mean, it's almost a time where it's like circus music. And there's moments in System's catalog where they have songs that are absolutely like that. And so to see this band do what they were doing at the time to add their specific flair to punk rock, which is a genre that I don't think it gets nearly enough credit for blowing up as much as it was at the time and differentiating. You think about a band like The Clash, for example. It's super simple, and I'll use the album London Calling. The range of music on that album is incredible. Like it blows me away how complex and how diverse that record is. And I'd say the same thing about the Dead Kennedys and this record, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. It's got so much punk drive, but definitely, especially for a debut record, shows their potential as musicians and the way that their catalog opened up, even though I believe it was 4 records before they broke up in '86. But getting into the track list on this thing, Kill the Poor, big vocal intro, and I absolutely love the guitars and the drums that build in to start this thing off in a mid-tempo manner, and then the drums pick it up and it just goes to work. A really sick solo. I really like the way that the bass charges right along on this thing, but the chorus is insanely catchy, and this is a perfect example right off the bat. The first song you hear in their catalog of that satirical snarkiness of Jello writing a chorus that, kill, 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 kill the poor. It really sounds like a song that's written from the perspective of rich people, and I think it's just freaking brilliant. Forward to Death is your second track. Drums are hot on this thing right out the gate. Great back and forth between the bass and the guitar. I love that element of this track. And the bass is just filthy from start to finish on this thing. It definitely is a highlight for me. Klaus Fluoride just shredding on this record from start to finish. When You Get Drafted is your third song. It's bass first, guitar follows in quick, then the action. There's this moment where I feel like I hear System of a Down so much on this song inspiring that band. But so many other bands, I mean, metal bands, Slayer, Metallica, just general hard rock bands. I mean, this is a band whose influence has really been ubiquitous across the board, quietly as well. Like, I don't know too many people who listen to the Dead Kennedys, but they're one of those bands that I feel like when I throw them on for people, this record especially, it's immediately like, oh, okay, I get it. And melodies, punk music is melodic, no doubt. And I think that even though it's raw, even though it's rough, there's a ton of really great melody on this record. When You Get Drafted, yes, we talked about that. Your 4-track, Let's Lynch the Landlord. Guitar opens slow. Things go down just a tiny bit as far as the tempo with this thing, but just a solid, aggressive, alternative rock song. Really kind of a different feel. Bit of surf rock as well, and that's another thing that I love about the Dead Kennedys is their style. Punk music inspired by garage rock. It kind of feels natural that influence is there with a lot of punk bands, but these guys, it honed in on it so well. I think the surf rock element of their music is just outstanding. And a great solo on that song, Let's Lynch the Landlord. Excuse me. Drug Me is your 5th track. You got this quirky, just rapid fire punk track. Again, System of a Down, feeling this band influencing that outfit on a track like this. You get these spooky synth textures, which are really unique, kind of coming out of nowhere on that track. It's excellent, though. Your Emotions, brief guitar intro, ushers in a driving punk track. Great melodies that work on this thing. Really love this song. Chemical Warfare, your 7th track. Great opening riff, ushers in a driving track with just really cool structure on this song. Love the way the Jello's vocals are going to move around East Bay Ray's guitar, and it just a wild circus-style kind of breakdown, and then the coda transcends into chaos on this thing. It really is a very unique track, leading into the first single released in 1979, actually, summer of 1979, California Uber Alice. Big, like kind of like military style drums, just big, just stomping drums, rolling bass that works in. I love the bass on this song. Guitar behind it, incredibly catchy hook, and just freaking love the breakdown on this song and the bass from start to finish. Just crunching on this thing. I absolutely love it. I Kill Children is your 9th song. They're not shy. And this song is just ridiculous and hilarious, in your face. And yeah, it's, if you want to wake people up sometimes, I know not everybody likes the angle, but again, I think that this is a band that's always done it really well. Feedback and vocal guitar works in for, punk version of A Modest Proposal, in my opinion. Stealing People's Mail is your 10th song. Stop and go punk style to open. When it hits the chorus part of the song, it keeps just the rhythm of the track going. Doesn't, and it's going to move back and forth between those two elements. Fun song there. Funland at the Beach is simple one-note guitar intro, drums built in. Guitar and bass come in once those drums roll in, and you get like a blues-style punk rock track, which is, again, unique. Felt like a White Stripes kind of vibe to it. Again, surf rock rolling with this track as well. Probably one of my favorite tracks on this record. Ill in the Head. Love the bass on this track. Guitars are sick as well. Psychedelic punk feel is quite nice. And then that's your penultimate track, Holiday in Cambodia. Very famous track off this record. 2nd single. California Uber Alice and Holiday in Cambodia. Both tracks on this particular record, they picked up the tempo on the recording a little bit. You get much more song on Holiday in Cambodia on this record as well. Just trippy guitars to open. Like think Jimi Hendrix for real. The ominous bass is so good that builds in. Drums come in behind that. Just driving melodic punk. Amazing solo on this song. Wrapping up what is really one of the most legendary, groundbreaking, not just punk rock records, but you look at the influence that this album has had, this band has had, and especially in such a short span of time. And I'd say within about 6 years, these guys did their thing, and that original lineup no longer there. But a guy like Jello, his voice, amazing. We were talking about Robert Christgau last week too with Coldplay. It's funny, 2 different bands. Robert never thought much of Jello, but it's funny to see his thoughts. And 44 years on, you look at all the bands that this outfit has inspired, and knowing that Jello's still out there making music, the Dead Kennedys, in its newest iteration, they're still doing their thing. But it's just a fun record that if you haven't checked it out, it's raw, it is explicit. So, if you got kids, I might, put on the headphones, wait till they're at school, something like that. But worth a listen. And like I said, I think that even if it's not your thing, you'll appreciate what's going on melodically in so many ways just because of what you hear and the way that it's inspired, again, so much rock and roll that is, going down right now, being released, bands that are playing live, doing their own thing as well. It's just a pleasure to have the Dead Kennedys and their inspiration on music. And it's been fun joining you guys this morning. I don't see anything in the chat. It's unfortunate, but I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you've had a good time, and stay tuned throughout the week for more album reviews. Check out the show next week. I'll be back Monday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And until then, take care. Enjoy your Labor Day. We'll see you.